Alright, let's set the scene, because this one feels like a movie. No, scratch that. It feels like a whole season of hard knocks crammed into a single afternoon. Day 16 of Brown's training camp. The sun's beating down, players are gassed, coaches are barking, and everyone's just trying to get through another brutal practice. And then it happens. The moment that takes this from routine preseason grind to the kind of headline that rattles the entire NFL.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Shedeur Sanders. Yes, the same Shedeur who's been carving up practice defenses like he's playing Madden on rookie mode. Goes 17 for 17 in drills. 17 throws, 17 completions, not a ball wasted. Teammates are buzzing, fans in attendance are cheering, and for a second, it looks like we're about to witness the coronation of the Browns' next franchise quarterback. And then Kevin Stefanski opens his mouth. Instead of praising the performance, instead of acknowledging the flawless run, Stefanski reportedly pivots, bringing up Dillon Gabriel. He starts comparing Sanders unfavorably to Gabriel, nitpicking little details, framing Shedeur's perfect showing as somehow not good enough. And in that instant, the air shifts. What should have been Sanders' triumphant moment turns sour. The young QB's patience snaps, and suddenly the Browns' locker room is a battlefield. According to the whispers, Shedeur confronted Stefanski right after practice. Not in some passive-aggressive, "we'll talk later" way. No, this was heated. Voices raised. Words exchanged. The kind of scene that makes teammates freeze, unsure whether to step in or back away. It was a kind of moment that exposes every crack in an organization. And make no mistake, this wasn't just about one practice critique. This was years of systemic tension boiling over. Sanders didn't just hear Stefanski's words. He heard the subtext. He heard, no matter how well you perform, you'll still be pushed behind the guy we like better. He heard the echoes of favoritism, of hierarchy, of the old school system where names and politics outweigh merit. And, you know what? He wasn't having it. Because Shedeur Sanders represents something bigger. He's part of this new generation of athletes who aren't content to wait their turn or pay their dues just because that's how it's always been done. He's a product of player empowerment, raised in the spotlight, groomed to perform under pressure, and unwilling to shrink himself just to make the hierarchy comfortable. Stefanski, on the other hand, represents the old guard, the process, the structure, the my way or the highway philosophy. He's not wrong to believe in discipline and hierarchy. That's how football has been built for decades. But in this clash, he looks like the coach trying to put a lid on a pot that's already boiling over. So, picture the locker room in that moment. Sanders, still in pads, fire in his eyes, calling out what he sees as disrespect. Stefanski, digging his heels in, trying to reassert control. And surrounding them? Teammates divided. Some nodding silently in agreement with Sanders, others shifting uncomfortably, not wanting to cross the head coach. That's how fractures start, not with dramatic ultimatums, but with moments like this, where lines get drawn in the sand. And the fallout? Oh, it's messy. Reports say the locker room is split. Younger players, especially those who've admired Sanders' composure and performance, are leaning toward him. They see him as a leader. A guy who's not afraid to stand up for himself. Veterans, though, some of them are wary. They've been around long enough to know that challenging the coach in public is dangerous, even career suicidal. But even they can't ignore the truth. Sanders is outperforming expectations, and Stefanski's favoritism is hard to justify. Let's not gloss over the racial dynamics here, either. Because whether anyone admits it out loud or not, they're part of the tension. A young black quarterback, confident, outspoken, demanding respect. He's held to a different standard than others. The same fire that would be praised as leadership in someone else is spun as attitude when it's Shedeur. And Sanders knows that. It's part of why this confrontation cut so deep. He's not just fighting for snaps. He's fighting for fair recognition in a system that often marginalizes players who look like him when they dare to push back. Now, what makes this whole thing nuclear is the timing. We're not in week 12 of the season. when tempers are already fried. We're not in some meaningless rookie minicamp. This is training camp, the foundation of the year, the time when unity is supposed to be built brick by brick. And instead of unity, the Browns are staring down an open wound in the heart of their team culture. And the media? Oh, they're feasting. The second whispers of the confrontation hit the airwaves. Reporters pounced. Headlines blaring. Shedeur Sanders challenges coach. Locker room turmoil in Cleveland. Talk shows debating whether Sanders is out of line or Stefanski is out of touch. Social media running wild with clips, rumors, and memes. Every angle is being dissected, and suddenly, what should have been just another day at camp has turned into a national storyline. And this isn't just about Shedeur versus Stefanski. This is about the Browns as an organization. Ownership, already under scrutiny for meddling in football decisions, looks weaker than ever. If Haslam sides with Stefanski, he risks alienating Sanders and the players who back him. If he sides with Sanders, he undermines his head coach. Either way, the Browns look like a franchise without alignment, without a clear voice, without stability. And that instability? It's poison. Coaches can't plan game scripts. Players don't know who to trust. Practices turn tense. Every mistake becomes amplified because people start wondering, is this about football or is this about politics? Let's talk stakes. If the Browns don't fix this fast, they're not just risking one season. They're risking the foundation of their future. Sanders has leverage. He's young, talented, marketable, and respected by peers. If he feels marginalized long enough, he could demand a trade. And if that happens, Cleveland doesn't just lose a promising quarterback. They become the franchise that drove away a star because they couldn't get out of their own way. And the NFL as a whole? They're watching closely. Because this isn't just a Brown story. It's a league-wide cautionary tale. Teams everywhere are struggling with the balance between old-school coaching, authority, and new-school player empowerment. How do you respect the hierarchy without suffocating talent? How do you discipline without demeaning? How do you let a player like Sanders shine without feeling like you've lost control? Right now, Cleveland is the guinea pig for that experiment. And let's be real, it doesn't look pretty. Let's give out a fake award here, the Volcano Award, for the team most likely to erupt before the season even starts. And congratulations to the Browns, because this locker room confrontation just put them in the top spot. But here's the kicker. This story's not over. It's just the beginning. The next few days will determine everything. If Stefanski and Sanders can sit down, hash it out, and find common ground, maybe this turns into one of those turning points that actually strengthens the team. Maybe this is the moment that bonds them, that shows Sanders' leadership and Stefanski's adaptability. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe the lines are already too deep. Maybe Sanders goes quiet, but not out of peace, out of planning. Maybe his silence means he's weighing his options, considering his leverage, plotting his next move. And if that's the case, the Browns are sitting on a powder keg, and the NFL is holding its breath. So, where does that leave us? With a team on the brink, a coach under fire, a young star fighting for respect, and a fan base caught in the middle of yet another Cleveland catastrophe. And you? You're left asking the only question that matters. Is this just another Browns blunder? Or is it the spark that forces the NFL to finally reckon with the clash between hierarchy and merit, tradition and talent, control and empowerment? Because in Cleveland, the only thing more predictable than heartbreak is the drama that comes before it. All right, so let's pick up where we left off. Day 16 ends in fire and smoke. Shedeur Sanders storms out of practice after going head-to-head with Kevin Stefanski. And suddenly the Browns' entire training camp feels less like football and more like an episode of Succession. But here's the thing. When a blow-up like this happens, the real story isn't just the explosion. It's what comes after. The silence. The whispers. The fallout. Day 17 rolls around, and everyone's walking on eggshells. You know that awkward feeling after two family members get into a screaming match at Thanksgiving dinner, and the next morning everyone's pretending like nothing happened? That's the Browns facility right now. Coaches sipping coffee like they didn't just get humiliated. Players joking in the locker room, but their eyes darting toward Sanders' stall, wondering what's next. And Stefanski? He's pacing, clipboard in hand, trying to convince himself he's still in control. Except he isn't. Because the second a player, especially a quarterback, publicly challenges your authority, the locker room dynamic changes forever. It's no longer about schemes or drills. It's about loyalty, about who's standing with who. And the Browns? They're split down the middle. On one side, you've got the Sanders camp. Young guys who respect his swagger, his poise, and his results. They saw him torch defenders in practice. They saw him hit 17 for 17. They saw him step into the huddle with confidence, something Cleveland quarterbacks haven't done consistently since, well, ever. To them, Shedeur is the real deal. And Stefanski criticizing him after a flawless practice? That's disrespect, plain and simple. On the other side, you've got the Stefanski loyalists. Veterans who believe in order, in hierarchy, in respecting the chain of command. To them, Sanders' outburst wasn't leadership, it was insubordination. They don't care if he went perfect in drills. They care that he crossed a line you're not supposed to cross in football culture. Going after the head coach. And here's the twist, both sides have a point. Sanders deserves recognition for what he's done, but Stefanski has a right to expect discipline. That's what makes this such a powder keg. There's no clean right or wrong. Just perspectives colliding in real time. Meanwhile, the media storm is growing. ESPN segments dissecting the confrontation. Local Cleveland radio framing it as the defining moment of the season. Anonymous quotes leaking from inside the facility, some praising Sanders' courage, others painting him as arrogant. And social media? Forget it. Sanders versus Stefanski is trending, memes are flying, and fans are already choosing sides. And here's where ownership steps into the spotlight. Jimmy Haslam isn't exactly known for sitting quietly during crises. He's the type of owner who wants control, who wants to steer the narrative. So what does he do? Does he back Stefanski, reaffirming the authority of the coaching staff? Or does he lean into the Sanders hype, siding with the young quarterback as the future of the franchise? Because whichever side he picks, the message is loud and clear. If he backs Stefanski, Sanders will feel hung out to dry. And trust me, quarterbacks with leverage don't just sit quietly when they feel slighted. If he backs Sanders, Stefanski becomes a lame duck coach overnight. Either way, the Browns are teetering on the edge of a civil war. And Shedeur? He's playing this smart. After the confrontation, word is he's gone quiet. No interviews, no sound bites, no passive-aggressive social media posts. Just silence. And in today's media landscape, silence speaks louder than words. His teammates notice. His coaches notice. The fans notice. Is he simmering? Is he plotting? Is he considering asking for a trade? Nobody knows. And that uncertainty is worse than any statement he could have made. But let's not ignore the racial undertones here. Because whether the Browns admit it or not, they're part of the equation. A young black quarterback standing up to authority, demanding respect, demanding fair treatment. That rubs people the wrong way in ways they don't always say out loud. If Shedeur were a different kind of player, maybe his fire would be framed as passion, as leadership. Instead, he's painted as difficult, as a problem. And Sanders knows this. He's been raised by Deion Sanders, a man who's dealt with those double standards his whole career. Shedeur understands exactly how his actions will be framed, and yet he still chose to confront Stefanski. That makes his decision even more powerful. So what happens next? Let's play this out. Scenario 1. The Browns spin this as healthy competition. They downplay the confrontation, frame it as the heat of the moment, and hope the media cycle moves on. But anyone in that locker room knows better. The tension lingers. Every glance between Sanders and Stefanski is scrutinized. Every word feels loaded. The air is thick with distrust, and even if they smile for the cameras, behind the scenes it's fragile. Scenario 2. Sanders escalates. Maybe he doesn't show up to practice. Maybe his agent leaks that he's considering his options. Suddenly, the Browns are staring down the barrel of a quarterback controversy before the preseason even starts. Fans take sides, the media goes nuclear, and the organization looks like a clown show again. Scenario 3. Stefanski tries to reassert control. Maybe he benches Sanders for a preseason game, makes an example out of him. But that backfires because fans aren't blind. They saw Sanders' practice stats. They know he's balling out. They'll turn on Stefanski faster than you can say quarterback curse. And scenario 4, ownership intervenes. Jimmy Haslam calls a closed-door meeting, forces Stefanski and Sanders to hash it out, and pushes them to reconcile. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. But one thing's certain, the damage is already done. Once a locker room sees this kind of fracture, you can patch it, but you can't erase it. The scar is permanent. Now, zoom out to the NFL at large. Every team is watching this saga with interest. Because Sanders isn't just another rookie quarterback. He's a test case. He represents the next wave of NFL players who aren't afraid to speak up, to challenge authority, to demand fair treatment. If Sanders wins this battle, if he forces the Browns to respect him, it sets a precedent. Other young players will follow his lead. But if he loses, if he gets labeled difficult and buried on the depth chart, that sends a very different message. And here's the kicker. Sanders doesn't even need to win in Cleveland. If he forces his way out and thrives somewhere else, he still wins the long game. Imagine him lighting it up for another franchise while the Browns flounder. It would be the most Cleveland outcome possible. The Browns, of course, can't afford that. Their history with quarterbacks is already a national punchline. If they alienate Shedeur and watch him thrive elsewhere, it won't just haunt them. It'll cement their reputation as the franchise that can't get out of its own way. So what's the moral here? Maybe it's that the old school ways of football, hierarchies, favoritism, rigid authority, don't work the same in 2025. Maybe it's that talent can't be silenced anymore. Or maybe it's just that Cleveland, in all its cursed glory, is once again proving that when there's chaos in the NFL, you can bet the Browns are somehow in the middle of it. Let's hand out another fake award, because honestly, they've earned it. The Self-Sabotage Hall of Fame plaque for the team most committed to snatching dysfunction from the jaws of progress. And yes, the Cleveland Browns win it again, adding to their already crowded trophy case of meltdowns. All right, here we go again. Because if day 16 was the spark, day 17 was the smoke, and day 18 was the fire alarm blaring through the whole building, then day 19? That's the part where the neighborhood gathers outside, pointing at the flames, and everyone's whispering the same thing. Is Cleveland really about to blow this up? By now, what started as one heated locker room confrontation has snowballed into a franchise-level crisis. The Browns aren't just in the news cycle, they are the news cycle. Every headline, every talk show, every scroll through sports Twitter is dominated by Shedeur Sanders versus Kevin Stefanski. The debate has left the locker room, spilled into the streets, and now the whole league is sitting back with popcorn, watching Cleveland unravel like a Netflix drama with too many plot twists. Day 19 opens with whispers, trade whispers. Not official, not public, but loud enough to echo through every hallway of the Browns facility. Insiders claiming Shedeur's camp is testing the waters, quietly gauging interest from quarterback-hungry franchises. The Jets, the Raiders, maybe even the Falcons. You name it, and suddenly Shedeur Sanders' name is being linked to them. And the Browns? They're panicking, because the idea of losing their young star before he even takes a regular season snap isn't just embarrassing, it's catastrophic. Imagine being a fan in Cleveland right now. You survived the carousel of mediocrity. You lived through Johnny Manziel, Deshaun Kaiser, Baker Mayfield, all the way to the present. You finally thought you had someone who looked calm, polished, NFL ready. And now, before it even begins, the organization is fumbling the bag so hard that Sanders might actually walk. The dog pound doesn't even know whether to cry or laugh at this point. Some are already burning Stefanski in effigy online. Others are threatening to cancel their season tickets if Sanders is traded. The emotional whiplash is real. Meanwhile, Stefanski is doubling down. His camp is leaking that no player is bigger than the team, and that discipline and hierarchy are non-negotiable. He's standing firm, trying to project strength. But let's be honest, it's coming off brittle. Because everyone knows that in the modern NFL, quarterbacks are bigger than the team. The whole league is built around them. Fans don't show up for coordinator schemes. They show up for stars under center. And Sanders? He's silent. Again. No tweets, no statements, no leaks from his own mouth. Just that same unsettling quiet. But every move he makes is being interpreted like tea leaves. He skips a voluntary workout. Boom, trade demand rumors skyrocket. He laughs with teammates at practice. Boom, stories about reconciliation surface. The silence makes him the most powerful person in the building, because everyone's desperate to know what he's thinking. But here's where it gets even spicier. The locker room. Sources say it's no longer just divided. It's fractured into actual factions. You've got the Sanders loyalists, mostly younger players, who see him as the future and want him to lead now. You've got the Stefanski defenders, mostly veterans, who think the team will crumble without order. And then there's the third group, the fence-sitters, who just want to win games and are praying this drama doesn't tank the season before it even starts. Imagine trying to run a practice in that environment. Every rep feels political. Every play call feels like a statement. Every mistake is another headline waiting to happen. And ownership? Oh, Jimmy Haslam is reportedly furious. Not at Sanders, not at Stefanski, but at the optics. Haslam hates being embarrassed. And right now, the Browns are the laughingstock of the league. He wanted buzz, he wanted attention, but not like this. So now he's stuck in the worst possible position. Does he sacrifice his coach to keep his young quarterback happy? Or does he risk alienating the one player who could actually drag this franchise out of the mud? And let's not ignore the subtext here. Race. Because it's there, hanging over the whole saga, whether people want to admit it or not. Shedeur Sanders is a young black quarterback demanding respect, refusing to play politics, and daring to challenge authority. And the double standards are glaring. If this were Arch Manning blowing up in the locker room, the narrative would probably be competitive fire, leadership, he just wants to win. But because it's Sanders? Suddenly, it's immaturity, arrogance, not ready for the NFL. The bias isn't subtle, and Sanders knows it. That's part of why he confronted Stefanski in the first place. He refuses to play by a rigged set of rules.